And welcome everybody to week 13 of the college football season. Oh my gosh, it's already almost over. Oh, that's just so disappointing that the college football season is just about over, Kev. But we still have some FIU football. I get it. They're out of bowl game contention, but still a lot to play for the squad as they get set to take on the Kennesaw State Owls up in North Georgia, a very lovely place. I am Jay Gibson alongside my friend and co-host Kevin Barral. And then Kevin, before we even get anywhere talking about what the hell has happened, you got to go with the team to Jacksonville, Alabama. Let's talk a bit about your experience there, some of the people you've met, the food you've eaten, just being able to travel with the team to I'm assuming, a state you've probably have never been to. I'm just assuming. How did everything go?
It was awesome. I mean, aside from the result of the game, it was perfect. Honestly, the result of the game would have made it a perfect trip. It was a true pleasure to go. It was an honor. I thank FIU Athletics for obviously giving me that opportunity. Unfortunately, not going on the Kennesaw trip, but hopefully next year, the first one I'll be on is Penn State. You know, if you're listening to FIU Athletics, please get me on that one. And there's obviously UConn as well, which would be pretty dope. But now, man, you feel like a D1 athlete when you're traveling with these guys. So
right.
you got to live the D1 athlete experience for 48 hours, more or less. So I'm not against it. So I was pretty happy with that. And yeah, I mean, great experience. Jack State, rocking, amazing facilities. I mean, awesome football field, awesome press box. Couldn't say anything bad about it, honestly. And very nice. For the I know it's Jack State, it's in the middle of nowhere, but it's a pretty cool area for the most part. It seems like there's. Yeah. I would have said if we would have stayed in Jack State, there would have been a lot more to do than where we stayed, which was in Birmingham.
Right. I mean, but yeah, you basically were a D1 athlete on the trip. You could do a day in the life video on FIU athletics based on what you were able to do. So FIU, obviously, they have a 3-7 overall record. They're not getting into a bowl game, which stinks, Kevin. But I'm just going to say off top as we talk about their loss to Jacksonville State. Panthers played their guts out. Their offense played some of their best football this season. The defense did a good job at the start, but kind of crumbled in the second half. But I think overall this was a proud effort by this FIU team. Unfortunately, they were not able to get the job done, but there's still a lot to take away from how they did that. It could help lead into not just this game against Kennesaw, but the final game at home at Pitbull Stadium against Middle Tennessee.
Yeah, you kind of look at it and you tell yourself, you know, it kind of came down to two plays. The 50-yard pass from Tyler Huff and then the 56-yard rush from Trey Stewart. So two big plays. Obviously, the Huff one, I believe, was to take a lead, which FIU, I believe that was the what's it called? The flea flicker that they countered it back with, which was honestly awesome. That was
insane.
That was very cool. And aside from that, yeah, I mean, Kewan played out of his mind. Awesome game for Kewan. Very nice game for Dean Patterson. Devontae Lyons with a very nice debut game as the starting running back. He's going to end up redshirting the season, so he'll play these last couple of games, and he's now running back number 1. So I'm excited to see what he's able to cook up these next couple games. We spoke to him today, super cool dude, and I'd spoken to him during their media day, and you know, definitely seems like a very cool guy. St. Augustine product, one of the better signings FIU's had actually in their past couple of years.
True.
Super cool there, and yeah, I mean, you got to think about it. They did this all without Travion Barnes, you know, who unfortunately went through some family matters, which we won't talk about on here.
Wishing the best of luck to Travion, of course.
Yeah, he did travel back on Monday. Yes, on Monday. We're recording this on Tuesday, so he did travel back, and he is back at FIU and expects to play on Saturday against Kennesaw State. So overall, you know, unfortunately, didn't end the way I think anyone wanted it to end. You kind of would have assumed had you beat Jack State, you probably will make a bowl game because
we're going for sure.
Yeah, you're definitely going. So yeah, unfortunately, just not the way you wanted it to end. It really sucks. Like it sucks. Like it ended the way it did. You had at the end the non-targeting call. I think that should have been targeting. Would have kept the FIU drive more than alive. It would have given them actually some pretty damn good field position. I don't know. Aside from that, I mean, it was just a rough one to go in there, and I know that one hit the guys pretty hard. I mean, you've played Liberty up to you took them to overtime. You took Jacksonville State literally to the final minutes of the game. It really sucks.
They went band for band against Jacksonville State. A lot of teams this season, after they got off that 3-game schneid, have really struggled against Kennesaw or against Jacksonville State. But FIU played really good, and they obviously just weren't able to get done. Now, before we dive a little bit deeper into what we saw, Kevin, we have to acknowledge this on a count of three. 1, 2, 3. That was a targeting call. All right. I'm going to say it once. That was clear. Helmet to helmet. It even looked like he lowered it a little. But I don't want to say home cooking, but I mean, what else is there to say? But all right, made our piece. Moving on. Kewan Jenkins, Kevin, he really has improved his game as the season has gone on. I mean, the Kewan Jenkins we've been seeing these last couple of games compared to the Kewan we saw, against UTEP and on Vice Night, or UTEP before he got injured, and then on Vice Night when Shaden Perry had to step in. He's playing a completely different ball game, and it's all for the better. He's making smarter decisions. He's not afraid to run when he has to, and he's just been more accurate with his passes. 258 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Kewan's just playing some great ball right now. I'd say arguably the best ball we've seen him play since he became a Panthers these last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it has to also go to credit the offensive line. They've been pretty damn good this season. I know they've had
Bach stepped in and did a great job.
Obviously is back. You moved Jaheim Buchanan to a position where he's a little bit more comfortable. And overall, I mean, this is a pretty good offensive line for the most part. I want to say Kewan maybe was sacked just once on the night, in that game, and obviously against New Mexico State he wasn't sacked at all. So, I mean, they've looked really good. That offense really took a huge step in both these last 2 games. Unfortunately, just not enough.
Sacks, by the way. 0 sacks.
0 sacks, exactly. Yeah. So you look back at other games and you kind of tell yourself, why didn't the offense look like this beforehand? Why didn't they look like that against FAU, Sam Houston, UTEP? I mean, games that they should have won,
Yes.
And at the end of the year, we'll obviously talk about what could have been, what should have been, and once news starts rolling out about this team, we'll obviously dive into that. But overall, I mean, Kewan, you hope he stays at FIU. I mean, he is putting up numbers to potentially enter a transfer portal. I could definitely see that happening. Hopefully, FIU has enough to retain him, has enough say to retain him, enough of a reasoning to keep him here at FIU. But this is a very talented team on paper. It's going to be tough to keep them all. So we'll see what happens, especially in this new age of NIL and all this stuff, how it works. It's going to be hard. And players now being able to get paid, I mean, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to keep all of them. And there are some pretty damn good players. JoJo Evans, CJ Christian, 2 really good players who can enter the portal, and who knows what happens. So, but with the Kewan specifically, I think a lot of it definitely has to do with just having more time in the pocket. Obviously, the offense adjusted to what he could do, what he cannot do. Having 2 receivers like Dean Patterson and Eric Rivers have been pretty good. Antonio Ferguson kind of getting it going a little bit at the tight end. And then having a pretty good run attack, at least recently, with Devontae Lyons and Shamari Lawrence and Flex. I mean, it's been working, and Kewan is definitely making the case to at least finish all conference something. He'll finish on an all conference team. I'm pretty confident it'll be either him, Vadiato, or Veltkamp.
Yeah, that for sure. I mean, if you were to tell me that Jenkins was going to be in the running for an all conference spot before the season began, I'd be like, wow, he must have taken a real big step in his game. And that's what happened. It took some time, and like you said, you wish it got there a little bit sooner in those games against UTEP and Sam Houston, which would, I mean, we wouldn't be in this situation where we'd be talking about missing a bowl game. And unfortunately, that's going to be the sort of lingering feeling about this season before it wraps up. Every day we're going to be thinking about, gosh, if they had won that game, we could be going to the Bahamas Bowl. We could be going on an all expense paid trip to the Bahamas, Kevin. My God, getting to watch some FIU football. But no, it's not happening. And I want to talk about Devontae Lyons, by the way. What a decision by FIU to bring him into this game, and it paid off almost beautifully. 12 carries, 88 yards for a touchdown. I would have loved to have seen him be utilized more in that third quarter for one reason, again, just to catch Jackson off guard again, and for another, so that he could have gotten that 100-yard performance. He came up just short, just 12 yards away, but I know you spoke with Coach Mack today in the presser. Talk a bit about what he saw from Lyons and how confident he is in this man going forward.
Yeah, this is a guy who they've really liked for a long time. I think had he maybe shown a little bit more, had the running back room not been as packed as it was to begin the season, probably would have started day one, or not started, but definitely would have gotten a lot more reps. But they wanted to make sure that he was ready for this moment, and they actually had certain packages set for him. And, well, I mean, as you could tell, they ran a lot of those for him. So he got the start, and he will redshirt. So I believe he'll be a redshirt freshman next season.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, it can't work out any better for someone like Lyons, and he looked good, man. He got to the he did what a lot of these FIU running backs haven't been able to do, which is I think he ran for the most yards this season out of any FIU running back. So good for him. I really like what he's shown. He was a 3,000-yard rusher at high school. Again, multiple 1,000-yard seasons at St. Augustine. And, I mean, dude, this is a really good player that they have on their hands. I really like Devontae Lyons. I think this is a player that really has a lot of potential, and I think he's going to be your starting running back next season. We'll see what happens, obviously, with the portal and all that stuff. But, I mean, he will stay, and I think he will be a very, very, very good play for FIU.
Boy, that is such a big cloud that has to hang over every college football team's head this late in the season, is that how much talent can they retain next year before they get hit with the transfer portal. I mean, some teams, like the opponent we're about to take on, Kennesaw State, they've been dealing with transfer portal issues now, like right now, which is crazy to think about, but it is what it is. Talking a bit about FIU's defense, 34 points obviously is a lot to give up against one of the better offensive units in not just Conference USA, but the G5 level, maybe even P4, based on certain players. Talk about what you saw on how they were able to or how they were able to contain Trey Stewart, who, like the 700 Pelham Road guys talked about, arguably one of the best running backs in college football. They were able to limit him early, but he was able to make some explosive plays in the second half, obviously, including that big 56-yard touchdown, which I don't want to say iced the game, but it basically did. But just talk a bit about what you saw from Trey Stewart and how FIU how they did and didn't stop him.
Yeah, a lot of credit goes to Eddie Walls II and Keegan Davis for kind of stopping the run as well as they did. And obviously, look at those interior linemen like Aqualan Hill, Jermaine Carter, Jeremy Pasmore, Steven Shannon, who did play a decent bit too.
Yeah.
I mean, those guys really did stop the run in that first half. Unfortunately, it was just again, it comes down to those 56-yard pass in the run that kind of ruined it for FIU. And Trey Stewart really got to go into that second half. Got a lot of bigger chunk yards, I guess you could say, and he ended the night that afternoon as good as it could get. I mean, again, 136 rushing yards or 188. I'm not quite sure the exact number, but he was really good. And there's another way to say it. I mean, but again, a lot of credit goes to the defensive line. I mean, they really stepped up and played well.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't think there's a whole lot more to talk about this game specifically, Kevin. FIU poured their heart and soul into this game, especially when you lose a player like Travion Barnes. You have to adjust, and I think FIU did a good job with their game plan heading into this game. They just took on a team that I still think has a really good shot to win the Conference USA title game, and they prove it game in and game out. They just didn't have what it takes at the end. And when they had to create a game-winning drive with minutes to go, they weren't able to do so. It's just a tough loss. It just especially sucks that this is what killed FIU's chances at bowl eligibility.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, again, it's hard to say this is what it killed it. Obviously, it is, but you have to look back and you have to tell yourself you should have beat Monmouth, you should have beat UTEP, should have beat FAU. I mean, look at what's happening over there.
Yeah, I mean,
you should have beat Sam Houston too. Like, we're looking at a very different FIU team if some of those games go their way, and obviously, it's different situations. But again, it's the what ifs. I think that it'll come down to, especially if this team finishes 5-7. It'll be a lot of the what ifs for the Panthers.
Yeah. On paper, this is what killed the bowl eligibility. But yeah, this whole season features some of the biggest what ifs, like the most amount of what ifs in an FIU season I think I've ever seen. I mean, they had so many games that could have gone their way in the end to push them to just one more win to get them to that 6-6 record that I know Coach wanted really badly, the whole coaching staff and the players, so that they could experience some postseason football. But alas, that postseason drought continues. I think the 5 years now when they last played in a bowl game, which is the Camellia Bowl against Arkansas State back in 2019, which they unfortunately lost. But it's funny, Kevin, every single team in the FBS level named Owls fired their head coach this season. FAU, Kennesaw, Rice, and Temple. I don't know if I'm missing another. I don't think I am. But Kennesaw had a gauntlet of a non-con, right? UTSA, Louisiana, they began their season hot. San Jose is a good Mountain West team. And then UT Martin, a great FCS squad. And then things just didn't really go the way that the Kennesaw faithful would have liked for it to go in their first year of FBS. But again, keep in mind, it's the first year in FBS. The odds of your team being good in the first year of FBS is so far down, like a Jacksonville State level of rare, that you shouldn't expect that. But with that said, they pulled the trigger on Brian Bohannon to get him out of here as the head coach of Kennesaw. And I know we just finished talking with our guest, but I think that's insane, Kevin, to pull the trigger on a man who was there from the beginning, created postseason appearances for your squad, and to not even give him a full season of something that he worked so hard to get his team into, being the FBS level. I think it's pretty damn wild.
Yeah, definitely very interesting that they decided to fire him, especially not even a year into the FBS. I know he had been struggling at the FCS level, but again, I mean, that's part of the transition. You're redshirting people, and you're making sure that they could be along for the FBS ride. And I know recruiting had been great. I know when we talked to Kai, obviously we'll say more, but a lot of that triple option that Bohannon used to run, not being done anymore, trying to get away from it, hasn't been working. So, yeah, definitely a bad decision in my opinion. Very bad PR nightmare for them over there at Kennesaw.
Yeah,
I do thank him for helping me out with my article at G5 Football Daily with Davis Bryson. But aside from that, yeah, I mean, it's a little PR nightmare over there. I know their fans aren't very happy with what their AD has been doing over there either. So, yeah, Bohannon actually, funny enough, does have a connection with FIU head coach Mike McIntyre. So cool stuff there. Mac was GA at Georgia while Bohannon was a wide receiver, a player. So maybe McIntyre brings him onto the staff. You never know. At some sort of analyst, or who knows.
I wouldn't be opposed to that. I definitely wouldn't. But talking a bit about Kennesaw, there's not a whole lot you can say positively about the team that's gone 1-9, but they have had some decent consistency in both their passer as well as their running game, led by Davis Bryson, who, Kevin, I know you've been able to speak with for SI as far as a feature, talking about his journey to Kennesaw State and whatnot. And not to mention you have that running game, which this entire season has amassed 1,145 yards and 10 touchdowns. There's a lot of good things in the offensive side for Kennesaw. I think defense is where the team still kind of shoulders a lot of their struggles this season, especially giving up 30, 40, even 60 points at Jack State. What can you take away from the Owls that will be the biggest threats to FIU in this game, just generally speaking?
Yeah, they have a pretty good running back duo with Quo Ashley and who's the other one? Michael Benefield.
Yeah,
two pretty good running backs, and then you have a pretty good rush defense. I mean, they've struggled to stop the run at times, but lately they're fourth, I think, in Conference USA in rush defense. I'm just going to confirm that real quick to make sure I am talking facts. Yes, fourth in rush defense, and they're seventh in rush offense. So FIU little disadvantage there. We'll see how we'll see what happens with Devontae Lyons, who's going to face a pretty good rush defense at least. And I know what Kai told us this, and obviously he'll say it. So he said that obviously transfer portal should affect a little bit of that with
a lot of players
going out. So yeah, we'll see what happens there. But that's really the only thing that stands out to me. Davis Bryson, I think, is a pretty solid quarterback. I think with time he should be a little bit better. I would not say he's the worst quarterback in the conference. New Mexico State, I think, holds that title with multiple players on their roster.
Yeah.
But aside from that, yeah, man. I mean, I think it's a team that was in the build-up. I kind of would have wished they didn't fire Bohannon. But we'll see what happens. It should be pretty cool to have FIU face Kennesaw for the first time in program history on the road. Hopefully we face them next year here. I would have loved to go to Kennesaw State, but unfortunately not happening. I hope they come over here. I'm a big fan of what they were doing. And I still like that school, like that program. Very good basketball team. Very good baseball team. So that's something to keep an eye out on, at least in the future. And only out FIU women's soccer took this season was Kennesaw State. So yeah,
that's true. Kennesaw
and Auburn.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. But yeah, Kennesaw State, I think overall is going to fit well in Conference USA in the long run, not just in football, but yeah, in all the other sports you mentioned. A perennial March Madness team, and a very good baseball program, which I know we'll see this season when they take on FIU. So, but I mean, to sort of summarize Kennesaw, there's not a whole lot to really talk about. They're 1-9. I mean, kind of a blank slate as far as what we've seen in weeks past, because after that firing, like you had mentioned, Kevin, so many players entered the transfer portal that it's almost going to feel like a new team that FIU is going to be taking on Saturday because of how many new players are going to have to step in and take the spot of some old ones. I think generally speaking, Kennesaw State's receiving core was okay. Their secondary was okay, but they just don't have the clutch playmakers to win games, let alone keep games from becoming blowouts like they were in that non-conference slate, as well as a lot of their as well as their games to Jacksonville State and Western Kentucky. Let's clarify one thing, though. Kennesaw has been an overtime and a double overtime period away from having 3 wins so far this season, kind of like FIU, where there's been some one-score games that didn't go their way. So they're not the worst. If they don't win another game, they're not going to be the worst team in FBS. That title clearly is going to go to Kent State and the absolute hellhole of a season they're having over there in Ohio. But yeah, I think Kennesaw State definitely some room for improvement, and hopefully they don't get hit too hard with the transfer portal so that next season they can improve upon, but it's going to be tough, especially with a new coach that we don't know who the new coach is going to be there.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, they've already lost a lot of players, and that whole coaching staff is still there. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. Definitely tough situation over in Kennesaw, but I think in due time they'll be fine. I mean, yeah, we'll see what happens.
Let's talk a bit about someone who knows Kennesaw way more than us. That is, of course, Kai Millette of the Owl Chat podcast, who does great work covering Kennesaw athletics, not just football, but their really good basketball program and, of course, baseball down the road. Kai, super cool dude. He's actually a student at Kennesaw. So, hey, relatable thing between you and him, Kevin, being students at the university they cover. And he provided us with some good talk about all things Owls. So let's get you into that interview with Kai right now. And hey, everybody, we hope you're enjoying our episode of the Paws preview so far. And now it's time to get into some talk about the Kennesaw State Owls, which, I mean, a whole lot of storylines in their first year in the FBS level. And who better to bring on to the show to talk about that than Kai Millette of the Owl Chat podcast. Kai, it's been a crazy past couple of weeks, but overall, just how are you doing, man?
It sure has. I'm doing all right. Like I was telling y'all off the air, kind of shifting focus towards basketball season, a little bit more optimism there, but hoping we look okay on senior night on Saturday. So,
yeah, no, absolutely. It's I think Kennesaw is projected to have a very fine basketball team. I know they were in the March Madness, if not last year, then maybe a couple of years ago. So, but this is about the football team, and yeah, 1-9, not the season that they would have liked in their first year of FBS. But KSU athletics decided to pull the trigger and fire Brian Bohannon, who was the guy at Kennesaw since their inception. It's a very young football program. Just want to ask you straight up, Kai, what are your thoughts on it? Do you agree, disagree? Do you think you should have had another year? Just overall, do you like the move?
I didn't disagree with the decision, but the way it was handled was terrible. If you didn't know already, basically what happened was there were reports that came out from third-party sources that said Bohannon was fired like around 1 p.m. on that Sunday. Mm-hmm. The department comes out, issues a statement, and they say he steps down. And then a few hours later, Bohannon comes back on X and is like, I didn't step down. I was fired. And chaos just ensues. I don't think anybody in the athletic department realized how beloved Brian Bohannon was just amongst the Kennesaw State community. I mean, he's been the only head coach that we've ever had, and he's won a lot of football games. So it makes sense. But here's the thing is, he's a coach who's made a living running the triple option. He's tried to move away from that in the past couple of years, and it's been very unsuccessful. Recruiting hasn't gotten any better, and you can argue that that's not his fault because our NIL budget is close to nothing. That being said, it was hard to see a way out of it with Bohannon running the show. So I didn't hate the move to move on from him, but the way it was handled was straight up disrespectful. And I think the way they should have done it, they should have given him the option to finish out the season. That way you can start making phone calls. You can, put together hot lists without being disrespectful, and everybody ends happily. So I'm not going to say it was the wrong move, but it was done the wrong way.
Yeah, definitely. That was a PR nightmare that Kennesaw had to deal with those couple of days when this all went out. Now you have Chandler Burks. He's the interim head coach. Just talk a bit about what you've seen from him so far. Obviously, he's only had a few days to sort of get himself established within the program. But what are your thoughts on how he could lead this Kennesaw team?
Well, there are very few people who would have cared about the Kennesaw State football program nearly as much as Brian Bohannon. Thankfully, one of those people is Chandler Burks, and that's probably a big part of the reason why he got the interim nod from the athletic director in the first place. He's only, I think, 29 years old, super young. He opted to coach the Sam Houston game last week from the booth, which is something you hardly ever see. The only time I can remember something like that is when Hugh Freeze coached a game up in the box after he had surgery.
Right.
But definitely cares a lot. He has gone from a player 5 years ago to the head coach at the school. So that's a lot to learn really, really quickly. But the best you can hope for is that the players just love the guy and they're willing to rally behind him and finish this one out strong, because a lot of them are going elsewhere.
Yeah, and just getting back into how this season has gone, 1-9. Obviously, you have that insane win against Liberty where the fans got to storm the field not once but twice. That's something you don't see every day. Aside from that, things just haven't gone Kennesaw's way. They've had a couple of close chances against UTEP and most recently Sam Houston, both overtime losses, but still. Kennesaw was a very solid team with FCS playoff appearances prior to that, so is this how you kind of thought year one would turn out record-wise? Did you think that they'd have a similar outcome to, say, either Sam Houston last year winning 3 games or Jacksonville State going to a bowl game? How did you think the season would turn out, and did it meet your expectations?
We all kind of set the bar at, if we should go win 2, we better win 1. And we felt like we had the potential to steal 3 or 4, just the way the conference landscape looked. All of those could have happened. I mean, there was definitely a path to 3. I mean, there still is a path to 3 wins, even though I wouldn't bet on it. But the big thing is let's not go 0-12. Let's get that first win. And the way the coaching staff was talking about it before the year began kind of implied that there wasn't going to be much to wish for this year. I mean, the whole motto to the media from Bohannon was, hey, we're just trying to go get 1. We've never won an FBS game before. Let's focus on getting 1. And all of us were like, well, okay, I guess we're not going to get too excited. So it's just the way we've lost some of these games has been really disappointing. We've been in a couple, and not because we've been any good, but because our opponents have been pretty terrible. If you saw any of the Middle Tennessee State game from a few weeks ago, it was one of the worst football games I've ever seen. And anybody who paid to be there deserved a refund. So it's been brutal. I don't think you don't fully expect the emotional hits, especially if you're like around the program like I've been, that come with going through a 1-11 or a 2-10 season like it looks this is headed towards. But you feel it when you go through it, and it's been rough. So I don't know what people expected, but this is probably what we should have expected. I hope that answers your question.
It did, and for the record, we're used to 1-11 as well. 0-5, we've been there. The problem is we've been in FBS for a while, but we'll see what happens next year with Delaware and Missouri State and all that.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, definitely. So with Bohannon gone, that allows players to enter the transfer portal 30 days, and a lot of them have entered the portal. I think Bohannon definitely was a player's coach that a lot of people loved, and rightfully so. His 2 sons are in the portal, and a lot of players have entered that portal. Talk about some of those guys. I think Qua Ashley, who's still playing out the season, entered that portal, one of your main offensive threats. And I mean, at this rate, who else can you see going into that portal?
Great question. Quay is going to be, I think, one of the more sought after players that enter the portal just because of his kick returning ability. I mean, there's a very good chance that he ends up as all conference as a kick returner, just because I think he's the only guy with 2. As far as other guys who haven't jumped in that I expect will probably jump in, I don't want to speak any of that into existence, but it's hard for me to see a guy like Danelius Johnson, who racks up tackles like it's nothing else, and his brother has already entered the portal. It's hard to not see him following at some point. Both of our special teamers, as of 10 minutes ago, are in the portal. So,
Wow.
not even anything to think about there. And then we'll see if Davis Bryson, the quarterback, sticks around. He's had sort of a rough year, but it's one of those situations where it's like, I mean, he's going to have to go down a level if he wants to continue to see playing time. And at Kennesaw, it's the best chance he's going to get. Other than that, it's hard to think of guys who are major contributors that aren't already in the portal. It's that bad. It's going to be a complete roster turnover. I shouldn't say bad, but it's going to be that much of a setback and that much of a reset. But those are the two that come to mind.
Sidney Porter, you don't think enters the portal, or is he done after this year?
We'll see. I have to double check. I think he may be out of eligibility. He's been playing college ball for a while. He was at either an NAIA or a D2. He's got a cool story. But he hasn't entered the portal. It seems like he's happy to be where he is. He's happy that Kennesaw State was kind of the one school that took a chance on him. And so we'll see. He doesn't jump straight to mind.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about Davis Bryson and what he's been able to do this season. I mean, you kind of mentioned it, a little bit of a tough season for him, but he was the quarterback in that Liberty game, won Conference USA Player of the Week, Offensive Player of the Week, and he's had his moments, obviously, this season. And, it's definitely hard to succeed at this level when, maybe the players around you maybe aren't as good as you would think, or, have struggled the way they have. But Bryson definitely, I think he sat out the Middle Tennessee game. I spoke to Bryson, awesome guy, and super cool story. And, just want to see what your thoughts have been on him. I know it's been a tough year, but maybe a year or two could look a little bit better at the starter.
Yeah, he deserves credit for sticking in there through what's, going to be a tough season for anybody to sit through. I think he is slightly more accurate than people give him credit for. He'll make 2 or 3 head-scratching throws a game where you'll have no idea where the ball was supposed to go, and obviously that's an issue. But over the middle of the field, he's got a half-decent ball. He's got great speed. It's just been an issue of him being able to use his legs because he hasn't been able to get out to the edge. The offensive line's had a really tough year in pass protection. They've progressed okay in run blocking, but in pass pro, it's been ugly. He doesn't have the greatest weapons. I mean, that's a given when you look at this roster, and it's a lot of FCS level talent. He's the best option on the roster. We've tried 2 other guys. Neither of them, have looked nearly any better. So it's kind of, we just have to ride with him. He's our best and really only option. But he's a hard guy not to root for. Like you said, he's a good dude. We're all rooting for him, but there are things to be desired.
Yeah, definitely. Talk a little bit about that run game. You have Ashley and Benefield over there who seem like they've been kind of getting it going little by little. And then one thing that Kennesaw has actually been pretty good at is stopping the run. I believe 4th in CUSA in run defense. So just talk a little bit about, stopping the run and as well as maybe creating the run, something that they have a slight edge over FIU coming into this weekend.
Yeah. As far as stopping the run, that's been, I think, our one sort of middle of the pack in the country statistic has been our run defense. Unfortunately, the big boys up front, a couple of the best ones are in the portal. I know Dunlap, I don't think he is supposed to play out the rest of the season. Puda Walker has been in the portal for over a week now, and he's getting looks from Power 5 schools. Losing him definitely hurt. And then on the offensive side of the ball, Benefield is really, really solid. He's more of a he's going to run in between the tackles, put his head down, get 2 or 3 more yards than he's supposed to get type of guy. And then Quay Ashley is a guy that you like to get in space and that they use more in the passing game. I think that unit, the running back unit, it's probably the most talented on the offensive side of the ball. Both of those guys can play. I'm sure Benefield would be getting real looks if he wasn't graduating after this year. But we like both of those guys.
And you talk about the solid rush defense, but sometimes opposing teams' quarterbacks can just kind of have their way through the air. You had talked about some of those close losses. I mean, a 14-5 final score is kind of ridiculous. But other times, this defense has been prone to giving up 30, like 28, 30, near 40, and then you have Jack State who put up 63. Just talk a bit about some of the shortcomings that this defense has experienced, I'm assuming through the secondary position, and just what gives overall with the unit.
Yeah, we have talented corners for an FCS school, but they're just not FBS level guys. They're smaller, they're slower. A couple of them have been good playmakers. Mylan Jones has had a few moments this year. Jericho Washington, people were really high on. He's in the portal, unfortunately. I mean, yeah, it's a matter of if we play a quarterback who's worth a damn and he has real weapons. I mean, it's going to be hard to hang with anybody. Lucky for us, we've been able to stay in a couple of games because we haven't faced those things. And when that's the case, they make them look pretty good. But like when we played San Jose State in week 2 or 3 of the season, I mean, they picked us apart in the secondary. It was not pretty. So that's really it. I mean, it's nothing against any of the players, any of the kids. A lot of them, came to the school to play FBS or FCS ball. These guys aren't getting paid. And this is just a tough challenge and one a lot of them probably weren't expecting.
Yeah, definitely. That San Jose State game was in week 3, by the way. Tough non-con slate, all things considered. UTSA, Louisiana, and then a really good UT Barton team still in the FCS level. So, Kai, I want to ask you, I think FIU at the time of recording 9-point road favorites. Again, that worries me, but because we saw what happened when we were favored against UTEP in the Sun Bowl. But all things considered, kind of a manageable way for Kennesaw to get the 3 wins. After this, you have Tech, and Tech is just an unpredictable team. Regardless, how does Kennesaw accomplish an upset over FIU, which still sounds crazy coming out of my mouth like that, but what does Kennesaw have to do right in order to take down FIU in your eyes?
The things that keep progressing continue to get better. There have been times this year where we've been able to run the ball with relative ease. I think we're going to need that. I don't know exactly what FIU looks like on the defensive front. I know you guys have had several low-scoring affairs, so I imagine your defense is at least half decent. It's going to be the same way that we've kind of drawn up to stay in all the games that have been tight, which is, you eat up the clock, you take long drives, you keep your defense off the field as long as possible, and you just hang in there, and hope for the big play. Which sucks to say, but when you're less talented than everybody else in the conference, it's kind of what you have to do. I expect to see more of that against FIU, and no offense, to you guys in FIU, but I think this jumps out to fans and players and coaches as one of the more winnable games on the schedule. So you get some more juice and optimism, I would think, as this being like one of the ones that we have a chance to go get. Rather than like the Jacksonville State game where
I don't blame you.
Yeah, no, I understand. Real quick, on a neutral field, Kennesaw State or Kent State, who gets that win?
Ooh, I gotta say us. Kent State is bad. Kent State's really bad. I mean, we've won more games than they've been in, and we've only won 1. So,
right,
not wrong.
Take it for that what you will. But yeah, they're
that out there. But
we almost beat them a few years ago when we were in FCS. I want to say went to OT and we lost like 24-21. It was before my time, but I'd like to avenge that.
Maybe a future schedule is needed for that. But Kai, thank you so much for spending some time with us today, talking some Kennesaw football. If you could drop your @ on socials for both yourself as well as the Owl Chat podcast to see how Kennesaw is preparing for this game, please feel free to do so.
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me on X at Kai Millette. That's just KAIMILLETTE. And then you can follow the Owl Chat podcast at Owl Chat Podcast. Also on X. Even if you're not a KSU fan, it's a good follow. Our guy does a great job. So
definitely.
I can definitely back that up. So Kai, once again, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. For Kevin and myself, let's get back to the remainder of the Paws Up preview to go over this week in CUSA around FIU athletics and game picks. All righty, welcome back to the Paws Up preview. Once again, be sure to follow Kai as well as the Owl Chat podcast on socials. They do some great work there covering Kennesaw. They're not afraid to say the good, the bad, and the ugly. about the Owls. And unfortunately, it's been a lot of ugly as of late with that football program. So just talk a bit about your final thoughts here, Kevin, as we get ready to do some other stuff here on the show. Obviously, what's left of Kennesaw State will play for their interim coach, and they're going to play hard against FIU. They're going to try to give it their all. They want to dunk the Gatorade on their head coach. They might even storm the field if they win this game again. Who knows? But they're going to get the absolute best from Kennesaw of what's left on that team.
It would be pretty funny if they do beat FIU and they storm the field. That would be pretty. I will say for FIU to be stormed onto the field would be a sight that I don't think we will ever see again. So, I mean, yeah. But no, man. I mean, look, again, you said it. Senior night over there at Kennesaw State. It's a lot of these seniors' final game at that stadium. FIU really needs to come out here and blow the brakes off of this team. There's no other way to say it. They should do it. Mm-hmm. I know the what is it called? The betting line says what it says. I know it looks very similar to the UTEP one we saw a couple weeks ago, but I truly do believe this is a worse team than UTEP. This is unfortunately the worst team in Conference USA, and it's not very close. So yeah, I mean, honestly, FIU needs to come out here and play big time. Eric Rivers has the opportunity to hold the single season record for most receiving touchdowns by an FIU Panther. He would become the first ever FIU Panther to have double-digit touchdown receptions in a season. And then again, Travion Barnes returning, he could take the record for most assisted tackles in a single season by a Panther, setting himself up for the total tackles record, which is still up for grabs at 132.
Mm-hmm. So a lot to play for both squads. A lot of pride to be played for as well, just generally speaking, because obviously both of these teams aren't going to a bowl game, but there's still always so much to play for in any college football game, regardless of even this one. So let's take a break from talking about football here for a second and get to looking at what's around FIU athletics, just who to keep an eye on for in the 305. So let's get right into it. Before we even start talking about what is going to happen in the future, we got to go to the past and give a big congratulations to both of the soccer programs, both men's and women's. The men's soccer team had one hell of a gauntlet just to get to the championship game, knocking off FAU in the first round, which was awesome, and then knocking off the 1 seed Memphis 3-1 in the semis. Unfortunately, they were not able to get it done as Charlotte scores an overtime goal to take the CUSA champion or the American championship game from FIU by a final score of 2-1. FIU actually led 1-0 in that game. Charlotte eventually scores 2 unanswered. So still an amazing season for FIU. They were not projected to go this far, being the 5 seed, and they gave Charlotte everything they could handle. And then the women's team, they had one of the best seasons, maybe even the best season in recent memory. They went into the CUSA tournament on a heater, blew out Middle Tennessee, and then won a close one against the 2 seed Liberty to win their first CUSA title in program history. That is such an awesome thing for them to do. Unfortunately, they did not have any success against Auburn, losing 4-1, but it is what it is. Still just an absolutely amazing season with some history inbound for this FIU squad, the women's soccer team, who will, again, win their first CUSA title ever. So congratulations to them. So now let's get into talking a bit about some games coming up ahead. FIU men's soccer at the time of recording stands with a 1-3 record. They beat Florida National pretty well, but lost to Howard back on the 18th. At the time of recording, they'll be taking on Northeastern. That game will probably be finished as well in a mini invitational over at Fort Myers, hosted by FGCU. After the Northeastern game, they're slated to take on Cal State Bakersfield on Saturday, as well as FGCU themselves on Sunday. And then, this should be a good one, Kevin. They get to host FAU on Wednesday, December the 4th at 6:30 p.m. If you can't make it to that one, that's at the bank. It's also going to be nationally televised on CBS Sports Network. Now, FIU women's basketball has a 1-2 record at the time of recording. We'll see how they wrap up their game today against the University of Miami, UCG. After that, they're going to be taking on FAU also earlier today, so hopefully they win that one as well. The Panthers will then host their own mini invitational, the Thanksgiving Classic, starting on Friday, November the 29th at noon when they host Wagner. That can be seen on ESPN+. And then you have also Sacramento State and Abilene Christian in that mix as well. So we'll see how that tournament goes. And then next up is Swim and Dive, who stand with a 2-2 record. They're coming off a solid meet over at Nova Southeastern, beating both NSU as well as Lynn. They are going to be coming off their Purdue Invitational from this past Thursday to today, earlier today. They'll then head over to the CSCAA Open Water National Championships on Sunday, December the 15th, and then hosting Marshall the day after on the 16th. So a bit of time before their next meets, but still always a great time over there at FIU Swim and Dive. They know how to win, and they win good. So, and then I also want to give a shout out to volleyball, who, despite a rough season, 8-24, they got into the CUSA tournament. They will be taking on the 1 seed Western Kentucky Hilltoppers earlier today. That match started at 2 p.m. over in El Paso, where the whole tournament is being hosted. So, of course, as always, best of luck to FIU. So that's it for Around FIU Athletics, Kevin. And now it's time to get into some Conference USA talk with This Week in CUSA. So let me share my screen, and we can look at what the hell happened last week. As a lot of interesting games, but Kevin, oh my God, no one expected this to happen. It's just funny to look at. Louisiana Tech beat Western Kentucky 12-7. The Bulldogs did not score a single touchdown. They're like the Pittsburgh Steelers. They don't have to score touchdowns to win when they have a defense that good, and they dominated Western. There's no way to get around that.
Shout out to their kicker. Yeah, he'd want to work.
Yeah. I mean, just a crazy – and now, Kevin, that loss for Western has really derailed their chances of not just hosting the CUSA championship game. There's now a road where they can get kicked out, and Sam Houston or even Liberty can get back in there. So this whole end of the season is going to be crazy in determining who gets into that CUSA title game.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean – it's coming down to the wire with a lot of these teams, and who knows? I mean, I know you guys were talking about it on the CUSA roundtable, but all those teams, I mean, Western, Liberty, Sam Houston, and I'm missing one more, right? Jack State. They're all on a bowl game. Conference USA, I believe, has 4 bowl game deals. If La Tech somehow beats Arkansas and then they win against Kennesaw.
Let's cool our brakes here a little bit. Let's cool the jet.
I know, but I'm just saying what Ben said, bro. I'm just saying what Ben said.
No. I get what you're saying. But moving on now, this would have been so funny, Kevin, if it had actually happened. But UMass gave Liberty hell. They gave them everything they could handle, but it was not enough as Liberty wins. I don't know why it doesn't say it here on the CUSA website, but that game went into overtime. And the way it ended, I believe UMass actually scored a touchdown in their first possession of overtime, but their kicker missed the PAT. So then Liberty comes back, they score a touchdown, and obviously they kick their PAT and they win the game. But still, I would say not a very good look for Liberty to just barely beat a not great UMass team, but still a win is a win for Liberty. And mathematically, Kevin, they are still alive and have a chance of getting into the CUSA championship game.
Yeah, again, Liberty is beatable, very beatable, as we have seen. So, yeah, not much more to say outside of that. UMass literally fired their head coach right after that.
That was weird.
Yeah.
Jack State beats FIU. We already talked about that. Sam Houston, once again, Kennesaw State, back-to-back weeks of losing to teams in overtime, but still, Sam Houston's offense did not look amazing, and they, again, went band for band with Kennesaw and almost lost. But still, the Bearcats get it done, and I think Sam Houston can control their own destiny. I think Jacksonville State takes on Sam Houston State next, or it's going to be one of the last matchups for them. So, still, they were barely able to beat Kennesaw State.
Yeah, so we'll see how that one goes, and obviously, I think FIU will handle business.
We'll save that for your final score prediction, Kevin. But
I didn't give the prediction though. I didn't give the full prediction.
Okay. I feel. And then the Aggies beat the Aggies 38-3. But I mean, honestly, a little closer than what I thought it would be. I'm guessing.
I know. I looked at the final score and I was like, wow, like they didn't drop 60.
Listen. I didn't watch. I'm gonna be honest. I didn't watch the game, but I'm going to assume that A&M put up most of their points in the first half and then just put in their backups in the second. And then, it is what it is. But
Sure, man. We'll go with that.
They scored 3 points. They weren't shut out. So yeah. So going over standings, we both went with the same team. So we both had a 4-1 record. We both picked Western to beat La Tech, and that didn't happen. Excuse us, but that's low key. That low key is the second biggest upset in CUSA this season, behind obviously Kennesaw beating Liberty, which no one also predicted that as well. So that leaves us with a season standings record. I have a record of 52-16. You have a record of 46-22. So that's a 6-game difference, and you only have so many games to go, Kevin. So you're gonna need to get crazy here as we finally look into what's going on this week. So we have 6 games slated. It's worth noting that I believe the Sam Houston game and Jack State game, or actually, maybe it was the Liberty Western game. I'm not too sure.
Liberty's on Friday.
Yeah, that game's on Friday. So just to clarify,
going on. That's a 1 p.m. game.
Yeah. So
wow, that's interesting. Okay, so that game would have been by the time where.
Yeah. Regardless, so we'll start with that one. Western taking on Liberty. It's actually a close game because we now just saw what a good defense can do against Western Kentucky's high-powered offense. But at the same time, does Liberty have enough gas left in the tank to make a championship game run? And you know what, Kevin? I'm going to say they don't. I'm going to go with the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers. They're going to play pissed off because they want to get this win and get back into the swing of things at the top of the conference. I'm going to go with the Hilltoppers.
Give me Western Kentucky.
I like that. Moving on now to Sam Houston State taking on Jacksonville State. That's a noon kickoff, and I mean, Kevin, that game can pretty much determine who the hell's getting into the Conference USA championship game by itself. I mean, if Sam Houston wins and they win out, they can get in. If Jack State wins, they can not just get in but host. But you have a offense in Sam Houston with mixed results going up against a really good offense in Trey and Huff. I think it's going to be really close, Kevin. It might be a 1-score game, but I'm going to go with Jacksonville State.
Yeah, I agree with you. Give me Jack State.
Moving on now to a tough matchup in Knoxville as UTEP.
Let's just move it on. We know that one.
Yeah, we're moving on. We're both on the UTEP Miners. I'm just kidding. We're both on the Vols. But you know what? Just gonna say it now. Remember when I had to record that clip of us picking Liberty over Kennesaw and had to
record that. If you have to record that again, oh my god,
it would be crazy. New Mexico State is taking on Middle Tennessee at 2:30. I don't know. I mean, you had mentioned it, I think, earlier in this preview, Kevin, but the quarterback duo, trio, whatever the hell it is, over in New Mexico State, really bad. But I mean, Middle Tennessee has a pretty good offense, all things considered. I'm going to go with Middle Tennessee in an extremely close game. This could be like those overtime, something crazy happens kind of game.
It won't be very close. Give me Middle Tennessee.
Okay. So I thought I was going to hear New Mexico State there for a second, but
I almost said it by accident.
Okay. We'll save FIU and Kennesaw for the end of the show. Now we have this holy.
Yeah, let's just move on. Yeah.
No. You were talking that big game that, oh my gosh.
No, wait. I just said it's a possibility. Arkansas is much better. They're going to a bowl game.
Actually, they only have 5 wins. Arkansas only has 5 wins.
They're going to go to a bowl game. It's their 6th win. They will beat Louisiana Tech. Although Louisiana Tech's defense is really damn good.
Yeah,
they're not going to they ain't beating Arkansas.
We sound like the CFP playoff committee now, glazing SEC football. But I mean, yeah, I'll go Arkansas.
You don't feel too good about your pick.
I don't feel great because you know what? You remember what we saw last year with New Mexico State taking down Auburn? I wonder if
the same team, bro.
I think we actually talked about this in the podcast roundtable the other day, but it would be such a it would be such a Louisiana Tech thing to do for them to somehow beat Arkansas and then lose their next game to end the season and not get into a bowl game somehow. Okay, well, we'll see what happens there, all things considered. Now it's time to get into our final question asked on the show, as always. Who will win this game? The most important question asked here. Now, EA Sports has been kind of on a downer for FIU football as of recently, but I think we're all going to like the final score of this most recent simulation. So let's take a look.
Winning those individual 6-second battles every play, time after time after time after time, and that leads to a victory here.
And I love when teams go out and play like it's sudden death. Like if they lose the game, their entire season is over. This game wasn't for the national championship, but you wouldn't know that watching this winning team, David.
I like that. I like that final score, EA. You did good there. You know, I'm going to say it's kind of a realistic score as well. Sometimes these blowout picks or overtime games look a little crazy, but I like that final score pick. So, all right, but now it is time to ask that big question. FIU a 9-point favorite at the time of recording on the road. Oh my gosh, who's going to win this game? FIU or Kennesaw? Start off with Kevin. Give us how they're going to win. Give us that final score.
FIU is going to win. I think Kennesaw will hang in there for a decent bit, but FIU will win by final score of 21-10.
21-10. That's almost the exact same score as what EA said. But
they took my prediction.
Okay, I see you.
I have to change it up a little bit.
This is going to be such a crazy game. I mean, you're going to get 110% from whatever the hell is left in Kennesaw. But at the same time, you're going to get Lions. Can Lions pretty much carry the team on his back in this game? I don't know. It's going to be – I'm interested to see how much they utilize him coming off of what they used in that Jack State game. But I think Jenkins is going to have a really good game in the air. I think Kennesaw's secondary – is very beatable, especially considering what he's been doing as of late. I just don't think when Kennesaw will have to make a play in the second half to win this game, they're just not going to have enough left in the tank. The players that they had that could do that are in the portal. So I'm going to say FIU wins. I actually feel positive that they're going to win. I know it sounds like maybe I'm reaching here, but I think FIU is going to win by a score. God, that EA sports pick sounds really good. I'm going to say 28-13.
You know what? I was very close to changing mine to 27-13. So you beat me to it.
I like 28-13 though. That sounds good. So
yeah, they do. Honestly, I mean, keeping it close to a certain extent and showing the blowout.
Alrighty, Kevin. Should be a fun football game. I think all things considered. A 3:00 kick. Once again, we're done with night games for the remainder of this season, so it's going to be over there at Kennesaw, Georgia. I think the temperature is going to be nice and cool there, kind of similar to what you saw over at Alabama a week ago. So
I can see my own breath.
ESPN Plus is where this game will be broadcasted, and yeah, man, just hoping FIU can close out this season on a strong note. Then we head back to Pit Bull Stadium one last time on Senior Day as they take on Middle Tennessee. But that's for another day. So for Kevin and myself, it was a fun preview. Hoping FIU wins as always.
Time to win one on the road. They need to win one on the road. 1-5 on the road. Give it to me, please. They cannot finish 0-6 on the road. That would be horrible.
That would be horrible. But
with that being said, pause the flip up.
Pause!